Today we go over the 4 mindsets and attitudes that are necessary for seductive and or influential communication. Number 1, no resistance. Number 2, pleasure. Number 3, fantasy. And number 4, future. We'll go into each of these in detail, and there's subpoints that accompany each one. No resistance. What does the attitude of no resistance mean? Well, when you're interacting with someone, it means that every single thing that they say, you flow and go along with. There's no injection of what you want to talk about. There's no injection of your agenda into the communication. Rather, it's you open the other person and allow them to flow. The idea is that you want to get them to flow as quickly and as soon as possible, rather than having them close off and by injecting your agenda and or communication. So you want to find stuff that they find interesting and have them flow along with that, because as they continue to flow and communicate about that, you get them feeling good about the topic as it's something that they're particularly interested in. No resistance means that, an example of this might be when you're in a business conference and you're at lunch and someone at the table is talking politics, and it happens that it's not the same political views that you may have. If you want to be seductive and or influential in your communication, you will not show that this is something that you're against. Rather, you'll flow along with it. You'll ask questions that are like, oh yeah, why? Why do you like XYZ person? And it's important to layer in the levels of communication, as we learned about in the last lecture. Pleasure, number 2. Pleasure doesn't refer to making someone feel good in a sexual way or some such thing. Pleasure refers to the 5 senses and integrating the 5 senses within your communication, whether it be to be seductive and or influential. So you would use the sense of sight, describing a landscape visually as if one was in the woods and able to see the different types of oak trees that were ever so wide in their trunks, as well as the small little saplings that were peppered amongst the forests growing in the area. The whole idea when we use this is that we paint a landscape for others, and it makes it pleasurable in the sense of it's something that we're able to see, and it's a different way of communicating or relating to information rather than just cold hard facts of there was a forest. 2 would be sense of smell. So integrate the sense of smell in the way, any of your descriptions or any of your stories. It could be something along the lines of when you were in a cafe and you were walking through and you had met this person who had this scent of musk combined with pine trees and leather. And you saw him as an academic who was brilliant in his field, always writing and such. You'd get a good sense of not only who that person is on a level of being able to see them, but also really on the sense of when I encountered this person's presence, this is exactly what it was like. The 3rd one is the sense of sound. What does it sound like being in that particular area? In that particular example, the sound of a cafe with the audible voices of conversation between cafe goers, hearing a couple on their first date, a business transaction going on between a couple rug dealers, and a Turkish man speaking to a Syrian man while they were playing chess. This creates the sound, and it allows the viewer to think through and experience that particular area in the sense of sound. The 4th one is the sense of touch. Touch referring to what did it feel like. It could be the sense of air brushing up against the hairs on your skin as you're walking through the park. It could be you feeling a pet, petting your dog and feeling the soft furry back of your pet and how it the fur lightly grazed up against your fingertips. And then lastly is the sense of taste. And so taste could be when you were in a particular area, it tasted like if you were at a coffee farm, for example, it tasted like the fresh ground coffee beans. I could taste it in my mouth. The whole idea here, again, is you're adding to your stories senses that really allow the audience to viscerally feel what it was like to be in your experience. When you add this, it encaptures and captivates someone's attention because they are living through your words the experience that you're communicating. Hugely influential and seductive as you communicate with others. As we get to point number 3, fantasy. Fantasy is incredibly important, and the whole idea behind fantasy, or the attitude, the mental attitude behind it, is that wherever you go, things that are larger than life are occurring. In other words, when you walk around, it feels as if a movie is playing, because the ways that you go around and interact with your world is vastly different than the norm. And this is very influential or seductive because people don't know how to act when something like this is ongoing. How does one act in a movie? To a normal person, they have no idea because they've never been in a movie. And so if you conduct yourself in this type of way, as if you are you can choose any of your archetypes of your choosing, and you act consistent with that manner, and you have that mindset within you of like, well, this is a fantasy. Everything that I'm seeing going on around me, it's a play. It's a movie, and as such, I can pretty much do anything within it. It's a sense of influence or seduction or seductive communication because, again, people don't know how to interact or respond to these types of characters. Lastly, number 4 is future. The idea here is that when you interact or engage with others, there's always a future or continuity with this interaction, so that the first time that you meet isn't the only time that you meet. Rather, it's just the beginning of interactions that'll continue forward into the future. This is very influential and seductive because the person knows that it's not a short-term little game that you are playing. Rather, it's a longer-term horizon of this relationship, and that as a result, there's going to be continued growth in the relationship, and there's always something to look forward to. So again, pairing it back with all of the others, pairing it back with fantasy, the whole idea here is that the interaction that you two just had is something that's going to happen and continue on into the future. In terms of pleasure, it's the communication that you have is going to continue with all of these ideas that are very sensual, within the mind, mentally sensual. And then lastly, the idea of no resistance, that everything that you guys do continuing forward is going to follow along the path of him or her. Him or her in the sense of either a business partner or a partner for a relationship or some such thing. The person that you seek to influence or seduce. So in summation, we go over the 4 points one more time. And these are, again, mental attitudes and or mindsets that are critical for influential or seductive communication. So again, 1 is no resistance. 2 is pleasure. 3 is fantasy. And 4 is future. See you guys later.